Hey, it's Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. How you all doing this weekend? This week, I should say. The weekend's over. So this episode, I'll be talking about the final episode of Shogun 2024. Now, before I do my little review of the episode, let's talk about a few things. People who I can understand that people who might not have read the book or who might want like Clavel to understand, he wasn't writing the book of the entire paraphrasing or historically translating the entire Tokugawa Ieyasu life story and shogunate. Okay, he was taking a narrow period of time when power transitioned from Taiko and his heir to to, uh, to, uh, to Tokugawa Ieyasu and his family, and thus the Edo period of Japan would be an Edo period of Japan and the Tokugawa Shogunate, which was the last shogunate in Japan, right? If I remember correctly. Um, so he wanted to look at these great characters in abstraction through historical fiction in a narrow point of view of the time transition that occurred, and he kind of loosely paralleled these three characters, who all of whom were pivotal as well as many other pivotal characters, to show we the audience could see the change through their eyes. In other words, he wasn't writing about the wars that happened after this, which I have articles linking to all that. He wasn't writing about the Taiko conquering Japan, basically, or he was focusing very narrow, and he compressed time, and Lady Garcia never met William Adams and Adamson and all that sort of stuff, right? So that's all given. Okay? So I can understand people who weren't, maybe they, I don't know, kind of only read the book because they did the show, or never really read the book, worked on the show, and especially if you only watched the show, you'll be saying, well, wait a minute, I feel like there should be more to this, okay? And honestly, to me, it's complete, but granted, I watched the original miniseries before I ever read the book, so I had the mental approach that the end of it was the end of it, right? And I know, having read the book, that James Clavell has a sort of the Asian cycle, which I've mentioned. I have a link to in the chats down below. If it's not, I'll make sure it's there for this one, near the top. He doesn't necessarily follow this particular storyline, but he looks at other points in Asian history through historical fictional point of view. Okay, so that's that. Now the next thing to do is, well, you want to know what happens afterwards. I have 3 links. Okay. Now, if you've read the links before, you'll get a chunk of this anyway, right? But the 3 I have below are 2 from Britannica. One is about the Tokugawa period or the Edo period. Another one is about Tokugawa Ieyasu himself. And the third is about the Battle of Sekigahara, okay? And that's all happens after this, like the Battle of Sekigahara and all that, okay? So, we don't see how Ishido dies in this. In reality, there's a prologue in an epilogue in the novel that explains it, but we don't see that here, for example. And we just see Toranaga's political victory, and it would have been nice to see a little more violence in this episode, but I'm okay with that. Okay, because it was relatively true, if not completely faithful to the novel. Okay? So there's that. So I have the links, and so let's just go through this, and I'll give you some final thoughts on the production and rating and all that as we go. Spoilers abound, obviously. So we'll skip through the what's gone before. Now here's my major complaint about this. Okay, spoilers for the future of both the Asian saga and the Asian saga. Blackthorn never returned to England. Okay, ever. Okay, he died. They say in I'll Google for it so that we know for sure. John Blackthorn. Okay. So in Gaijin, which I've read, which is pretty good, uh, says that Blackthorn basically built a navy for Toranaga, and he had families in Izu, Nagasaki. Okay, and he had descendants in Japan. Okay, so it sort of ties into how the character's living on into. So, and again, there's another occurrence. One of his descendants shows up in another novel. The point is, this scene here is like, to me, is nonsensical. Okay, because these will be his English grandchildren or something like that, and that never happened in the novel or in any of the Asian Saga novels. That's my major. That's why this automatically is not a 10 in this episode. Okay, but that being said. Okay, so we start with the recovery. You know, he finds Mariko's body. Um, I guess that's somewhat realistic. I mean, the human body is far more resilient in terms of pounds per square inch than, say, a building is. But the building has more hardness, so it's more resistant to shrapnel than the human body is. So the concussive force would shatter the building. It's more brittle, but it wouldn't penetrate. But the shards wouldn't necessarily penetrate the building, whereas it would shred a human being. But the human body would withstand the concussive force. It would just die to internal injury from the fluid vibration inside. I know that sounds a little complicated, but there's a lot of bullet. So I'm okay with her not being blown to pieces here. Okay, this is what I'm getting at. You know, and this is I think actually this is one case where I'll say I kind of like this particular part of the adaptation. It's one of the rare cases where I think the death of Mariko was handled, Lady Gracia was handled maybe slightly better in the new adaptation than in the old, to my recollection. Okay. And this is basically when Yabu realizes he chose incorrectly. Okay, so he's my favorite character in this whole thing, both the novel and in this adaptation, and he's probably it's hard. He's I can't say he's my favorite character in the original adaptation because freaking Richard Chamberlain and Toshiro Mifune are bosses. It's like having double John Wayne in a movie, you know, and the actor who plays Yabu is not as this guy, not Saneda, Tano. We've seen him in so many things. I keep forgetting his bloody name. Asano. Okay. He. I'm going to link below to also the actual original character that he's based on as well, which is Honda Masanobu. So the actor who played him in the original, who's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great performance. I know I'm out of sorts here, guys. I just want to give the best possible stuff for you. You know what I mean? So Frankie Sakai, a great actor. I mean, I remember him from at least one kaiju film, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, maybe. Is my brain giving me the correct thing? Oh, Mothra. He's in Mothra, that's for sure. Okay. Obviously he has a great Japanese career, so I'm not gonna, he's a big Japanese film star, granted. Okay, well, so no issue there. Okay, but Frankie Sakai, a great actor. Now, I don't think he was as. I think Asano here really captured the book Yabu maybe a little better. Not that Frankie Sakai didn't do great, but right here the look on his face is the sum total of all my plans have come to ruin. I've chosen incorrectly. He knows right now there's no saving him. That he's been up until the point of this raid. Even in this raid, if he had gone in and granted Ishido probably would have killed him, but Tornaga would have considered him a hero. But up until the point of this raid, he still could have gotten back onto Tornaga's side because he was there by default. In other words, if he had just left, if left with Mariko in the morning, he would have proven his loyalty to Toranaga, and that would have been that. Okay, but so this was Toranaga's way of putting him to the test as well. So he put Blackthorn to the test, who becomes a loyal vassal who builds him a navy. Mariko was always loyal to him, and now she gains revenge for her father in a sense. Her family's trials. Toranaga's plan. So this was a pivotal moment. Now, what happened in reality is her death caused Tokugawa Ieyasu's forces in Osaka to have to come out of the castle. Okay, and because of that, the impregnable castles no longer mattered. Right. So that all being said, we can get past that. But I just, I'm probably going to change. This is going to be my thumbnail, okay? I had a different thumbnail chosen, but I'm actually going to take this one instead, okay? Because it's such a summary of a character realizing his fate. It's just amazing, It's an amazing shot. Ooh. And I hope I didn't just wreck my video. Well, we'll find out. Man. If, okay, we'll see. There might be a little jaggy in there. Anyway, it's an amazing shot, and it's going to be like my new thumbnail for this. I'm doing it live. Okay, so let's move on from there. See, even realized, no, forgive me, no. He knows he screwed up and knows his fate's decided. Now we have the daimyo, the daimyos on the Regent Meeting, and this is the political. So this is maybe harder to understand in a modern sense or the European sense because Europe had long since moved past the formal rules that the Japanese culture still followed. Okay. It's so the power. See, this isn't like the armies of all these feudal lords in Japan are still composed of all the smaller armies that the sub-feudal lords have. So I guess the analogy would have been for Europe, maybe early in like the late Dark Ages, before the central authorities had regained power control in Europe the way they had, say, during Roman times. Okay, that might have. So Japan, maybe because of the caste structure and all, so they had that, and they had to have the loyalty of all the daimyos and their sub vassals. They couldn't just have Ishido did not have his own big army that was bigger than all the other armies put together, which is in the modern sense why we don't deal with stuff like this with the sort of cultural impact of Mariko's death. And the debates, man resigned to his fate. He knows what's going on. He's basically seeking some sort of mental solace, because he knows his plans have come to the end. And now, okay, so we learn. Here's the interesting thing. So he had been sold out by, essentially by Toranaga in a sense, thinking he put Blackthorn to the test. I have a feeling Toranaga knew that, had given word to Mariko, like, look, if you have to do this sacrifice, save Blackthorn too. Get the Catholics to let him out, and I promise I will burn the ship, right? So we know that happens. Because he knows the value of this man, his knowledge for that he needs from him to build the Navy, to modernize Japanese Navy. Because Japan basically has these coastal vessels that are largely driven by man rowing. They're not the great deep seafaring vessels that can be powered by wind yet. And William Adamson helped with that, and in the fictional version here, he helped. Blackthorn helped a lot. So he has value, and this would have been where he would have been murdered by these guys on the road. Basically, is what he says. You know. I really wish they had a little more of the Catholic involvement of the like. It's like we saw. Basically, the only politics we got was the Japanese internal politics, and we in the original adaptation and certainly the novel we got way more of that. I would have liked to see, yeah, fine, 2 more episodes would have to pad out a bit. I would like to see a little more of that, of that, you know, of that, all the politics, not just the Japanese, right? So and this is Lady Ochiba with the heir. It's kind of tragic what happens to this kid. So I will spoil history for you, okay? Tokugawa Ieyasu was a very paranoid man, okay? Um, Whereas Toranaga was on the face. So had Toranaga gotten his way originally, he would have been head of the Council of Regents, and the kid would have become the new Taiko and ruled Japan, right? And because he also married one of Toranaga's granddaughters, and that's how Toranaga's blood would have gotten the line. Well, Toranaga becomes the shogun after all this, and he wind up. I have the articles linked below so you can read the details. His nephew was very loyal to him until almost his dying days. He, in real life, while the nephew was exceedingly smart and a cunning person, a great ruler, his one major flaw is he was loyal to his uncle. He loved him, and did not understand his uncle was paranoid, not lunatic, but his uncle felt they had to take him out to ensure his family's success. Whereas the kid was like, I married your granddaughter. I'm like a grandkid, and our blood is one. And there's a real tragedy. If they were gonna do a sequel, it'd be interesting to see that done. But you know, again, more of Yabu's fall, so to speak. Yabu's fate is one of the main things in this episode. Fuji revealing she's finally been freed to go. So Blackthorn again. I dislike in this terms of adaptation that Blackthorn had not been more culturally assimilated to Japan. He does, by this point, he would have been. They flipped a few things around, and the Blackthorn shares something with Fuji. He learns about the spy who's really a samurai. I mean, we're just winding down here, This is where Blackthorn learns one version of the events. This is where Blackthorn proves his loyalty in a sense to try to become so this is flip flopped in the novel. This scene occurs earlier in the novel. Okay, Blackthorn had gone all in on Japan beforehand, and Now here's the thing, they messed this scene up again. The Japanese gain when Blackthorn attempts seppuku, the Japanese gain respect for him. You could see in his eyes he had committed to the death in the way Chamberlain portrayed it, the way it was in the novel. And even Toranaga gained it because he said this man has become Japanese in his heart. That was the symbolic point of that scene, being when it was done and how it was done. And here it's just like Toranaga treating him like a fool, basically. And it's just not. I mean, it's great for the movie. This adaptation is just not great for the novel. And basically we wind up with Yabu learning some stuff from Toranaga, revealing the plan. I mean, I'm okay with the ending of this. It ended the way it had to, but this scene. I don't think this Buntaro scene is anything remotely like what happened in the novel. But it's been a long time since I read it, so don't quote me on that. But it works. This all works for the movie, so to speak, the miniseries. And there's that. Okay, so hopefully this video is not destroyed. I will have to play through it to make sure. Final thoughts. As a mini-series on its own, pretending it were an original work, not an adaptation, I'd give it like a 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Okay? As an adaptation, it's a 5. Okay? It's maybe even a 4.5, 4 to 4.5. I would prefer the original as an adaptation. They deviated too much. They weakened, in my view, both Toranaga and Blackthorn's characters quite a bit in this adaptation. I guess they wanted to give them more angst or whatever. That's a modern storytelling conceit. Very worth watching. Very enjoyable. I will probably rewatch this miniseries at some point in the next year or two again. The same way I might rewatch the original. But before I do any rewatches, I want to read the book again. Matter of fact, I'm going to reread the whole Asian saga again. I've read actually I never read all of it to begin with. I know I read Noble House because when the movie came out, I read the book. I don't think I've read Taipan. Yeah, that's why I didn't remember what book the Blackthorn information was in. So there's that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my review. I hope this review isn't all cracked up. I will check and share it out if you can, and like if you like, dislike if you dislike. My name is Bearable73. If you have any suggestions on what you want me to older stuff like this, I'll probably be doing Horatio Hornblower stuff as well as continuing my Progress and Sharp. They kind of go together with the Napoleonic Wars, So, thank you for listening.